What's up, folks? David Soto Jr. here, and this is the David Soto Jr. podcast. What's up, folks? Welcome to episode 48 of the David Soto Jr. podcast. I'm your host, David Soto Jr. I'm back at recording podcast, and one of the biggest inspirations for me to get back on the mic was an article that I published that's gotten close to, if I wrote something about sex, I would get a lot more attention, but this has gotten like second most attention of anything I've ever written, and it's because I wrote about discovering white privilege. Now, obviously, I am not white, but I was not 100% sure that white privilege was a thing. It wasn't obvious enough to me to even talk about, much less write articles about. But what happened was I got interviewed for a podcast, and I'd say the name, but I don't. The podcast is the Najona podcast. I think it's called Najona. It's a Polish word, and if I wasn't lazy, I'd get clarification on it. I'd click on the link to the podcast and listen to it so that I would know for certain the pronunciation. But the Najona podcast, and the host is Julian Esteban Torres Lopez. He interviewed me. We met on Twitter, and he interviewed me on the 4th of July of this year, and we spent, I think, 2 hours on the phone. I really wanted to get set up on a mic to have our discussion, but something happened. I'm not sure. We did a phone call instead of FaceTime or Google Hangouts or whatever. So, but on the phone, we started talking. We talked about a lot of stuff. He wanted to talk about van life and minimalism. We talked about my 6 months to live to-do list. But then he wanted to talk about growing up Latinx, or specifically growing up Chicano. And so we talked about it, and he asked, what was your biggest struggle? And one of it, part of it was the identity of being a Mexican American in Los Angeles. I grew up in went to a diverse elementary school, but it wasn't very diverse. There was Asians, different Asians, Koreans, Japanese. There were black children, white children. There were Eastern European children, and obviously there were Mexicans and Mexican Americans. The problem is still that there was such a negative view of Mexicans and Mexican Americans at that time that it was kind of a joke, and it wasn't as well celebrated like it was now. But that's not even what I really even talked about, or what was really my biggest struggle was growing up. And so even though I got shit for being a Mexican or Mexican American, I got shit for being Chicano, I got even more shit for not speaking Spanish. So here I am supposed to be Mexican, and they're like, you're Mexican. It's like there's so many negative perspectives on what Mexicans are. They're dirty. They're just housekeepers. They're the landscapers. They're thieves. They're murderers. They're rapists. And I'm referring to in present day, that's the view, but it was worse 30 years ago. But so not only did I felt something about just being Mexican American, but then I got criticized because I didn't speak Spanish. And so it was like a no-win situation. Do I try to whiten myself up and whitewash myself so that I don't uh, appear to be Mexican, or do I speak Spanish and appear to in embrace being a Mexican and embrace being my roots? There was a double standard. Was it a double standard? No, it was a no-win situation. So either I was too Mexican for some people, not Mexican enough for others, or both for people. Um, and just wanted to be people just wanted to be critical and say, "What kind of Mexican are you? You don't even speak Spanish." And it was hard. It was hard growing up not speaking Spanish. And so that is the one of the things we talked about with Julian. It was that whole thing about not speaking Spanish. Even my own grandmother would give me shit for not speaking Spanish. So Spanish speakers and non-Spanish speakers, like, yeah, there's nowhere you could go that it was okay to not speak Spanish. And it sucked, and it still sucks to this day because I'm not fluent. I can get around. I can travel to Central South America, Mexico, and not have any issues. Conversation, getting intellectual, getting deep. There's a lot of words, there's a lot of vocabulary I don't know. If we get into a topic, we can talk about food. I'm good. I got all the Spanish. But if we really want to talk about things that I have never talked about in Spanish, it's going to be tough. Also, I'm not to the point where I can watch, flip it on the Telemundo and watch a telenovela and understand everything that's going on. It's really tough. I can't understand songs, lyrics. It's difficult. And I'm not there. And I would like to be, because I can't teach my son Spanish. I can't speak to my son in Spanish because I don't want to, because it's flawed. And I don't want him to learn messed up ass Spanish. So even now, to this day, it's difficult. And so here's where I'm getting into white privilege. When I saw, so that is my background, that is my struggle. Being a non Spanish speaking Mexican American has been a struggle my entire life. Then we get to one day, not too long ago, I look on TV and I see Julian Castro is being interviewed on MSNBC, and people are giving him shit for not speaking fluent. Pete Buttigieg speaks good ass Spanish. Cory Booker speaks good ass Spanish. The only Latino up there does not, and that's and he admits that that hurts. He admits that it's hard. And why doesn't he speak fluent Spanish? Was because his parents were discriminated against. My parents, uh, my dad did not know Spanish because his father refused to teach his children Spanish because he wanted them to blend in. My mother spoke Spanish, I guess, as a kid, and then went to school and was told not to. It was like told to stop that, don't speak Spanish. So she ended up speaking English only, where her parents spoke Spanish to her. She would only speak English, um, and I think because she used to get rapped on the knuckles with a ruler for speaking Spanish. When Julian Castro relayed that not only uh, does he have the same struggles I have, but he also relayed that the reason he struggles with his Spanish is the same as us. It's the same as me. It's the same as probably a lot of people. If you're a non-Spanish speaking Mexican American, there's a good chance, depending on your age, right? But there's a good chance the reason you don't speak Spanish is because it was looked you were discriminated against, or your parents were discriminated against for speaking it, specifically in school. Um, and he said that, and I was like, wow, there's somebody like me. There's somebody on TV, on the screen, that's doing what struggles, knows my struggles. He has the same skin color as me. He knows what I've been through, and he's running for president. This motherfucker is running for president, and he's brown as me. and he has the same struggles as me, and that made me feel a word that I hate using, and maybe because I've never felt it before, but that made me feel empowered. I felt good. I go, look at this guy. This guy's running for president. He looks like me. He sounds like me. He has this. He is a Mexican American. Specifically, he's not just Latino. This cat is Chicano. This cat is Mexican American, and he is up there on fucking MSNBC being interviewed. A potential. He is a candidate for president of the United States. Maybe he could be president of the United States, though I think that's he didn't make it in the last debate, so I don't know. Maybe he doesn't have enough money. He's not rich enough. Can you believe that? My point is that I felt something I'd never felt before in seeing. I felt empowered. And I was relaying this to Julian Esteban, and the host. And he said, imagine feeling that way every day of your life. That's what it's like to be white. And my mind was blown. It was at that moment that I understood white privilege. And for the first time, I was like, wow, this is what it's like to be white. One person, one interview, seeing him on TV once made me feel like empowered. I hate that word, but it's what finally I finally felt it. Maybe the reason I hate that word is because I've never felt empowered before. I felt empowered. I felt like there's something that I can do. If this guy can run for president, this Mexican American can run for president, what can I do? I'm capable too. And that's just one instance, one occasion that there's some. You look up on the panel of these, you know, there's one Asian guy, there's two, there's two black people, there's several women, and that's a big deal right now. How diverse these potential or these candidates, these group of candidates are. And the fact that it's a big deal, the fact that the potential candidates aren't all straight white men should tell us something. The fact that there are women candidates, the fact that there are black candidates, Latino candidates, Asian candidate, gay candidate, the fact that this stands out and this is bringing attention to people should tell us something. Right. Well, one thing I wrote is like, if it's not a big deal, I'm trying to see where I wrote this. I can't find where I wrote it. Oh, when it's not a historical event that someone of your race or ethnicity achieves a status or is featured as a lead character, that means yours is the norm. That is white privilege. Academy Award winners, presidential candidates, presidents. Every president until Barack Obama has been a white man. Politics, business, acting, singing, Grammy Award winners, you name it. You name all the things that people want to look up to and strive to, that all the things that could influence a person, they have always been white men. Um, so if you and mostly white men, but and white women. But obviously, men take the lead there. Um, and if you're a kid and you grow up seeing all of these people in these leadership roles, I mean, even um, superheroes. I mean, as a boy, I loved Superman, wanted to be Superman, but what would impact would have had if Superman was brown like me? But that's not a factor for white people. It doesn't matter. They don't have to say what if because Superman was a white man. Batman was a white male. Um, and that's white privilege. And so, say, if you don't see it, let me give you an example. An example I thought of when I was realizing this is like I used to go to Guanajuato a lot. Guanajuato, Mexico City, Guanajuato, in the state of Guanajuato in Mexico. And I love the city. It's beautiful. Google it if you've never seen it. I love it. I love walking the streets. Part of what I did every day was just walk and just take in the colors and the architecture and at night when I was younger, I would go out and just get obliviated, just drunk off my ass, and would always walk everywhere I went, and would walk home or back to wherever I lived or was staying, not having any issues. Take a taxi, not having any problems. I've felt and believed in that Guanajuato was one of the safest cities I've ever been to. Um, that I could walk the streets at night and not worry about getting assaulted. Um, that I could get, you know, so drunk that I don't even know where I am, and I just meander the streets and find my way home some way. And I bragged about how safe it was, and people disagreed with me, and I'm like, "What are you talking about? Why are you disagreeing? Like, this is the safest city I've ever been to." And people would say, "Well, it's pretty safe, but still, be careful." And they would tell other new travelers, "Don't go out with a purse. If you do, carry it across your. Make sure it's a shoulder strap purse. Don't follow anybody. Don't go into dark areas. Don't follow anybody into dark areas." There's all kinds of warnings, and I would just roll my eyes. I'd roll my eyes and be like, "You, that's ridiculous." The, I've never had an issue walking the streets of Guanajuato. And then somebody said to me one time, and I don't know if this was just one conversation. It feels like it's the conversation happened over and over again. But eventually, one person said, "Well, look at you." And I looked at myself, and I realized that I am 6'7" and 200 and anywhere between 238 to 290 pound man. Uh, Sometimes I'm, depending on where it was in my life, I'm a big weightlifter, or regardless, I'm always big and I'm always somewhat intimidating. And if you are smart, if you're going to choose somebody to rob, it would not be me. You would find a weaker target just based on size. I'm not saying I'm stronger than everybody, but being big gives the impression that I am, and that was to my benefit. And um, I felt safe in Guanajuato. I felt safe everywhere I went. I never thought that there was going to be harm brought to me. And because of that, I thought people were ridiculous to think that it was unsafe, when in actuality, it is unsafe. I just didn't see it. And I actually had known uh, a couple of women who had their purses snatched. They were actually robbed. And even though I saw that and that happened to me, I ignored it and and didn't happen to me. But even though I knew of, I lived in a house where there were other students, and um, or had conversations with other people throughout my times there, and I knew of, they would tell me of their experiences, how they lost their wallet, they got stolen, they had to find a new credit card, new passport, because their purses got snatched. And even though that had happened, it didn't register with me because I felt so safe, because I never had to worry about that. And that's an example of what it's like to have privilege, right? Once again, or not once again, but it's not my fault that I'm a big man. It's not my fault that I'm 6'7" and 270 pounds, walking down the street without a care in the world, without any fear of being attacked because of my size. That part is not my fault. Um, what is my fault was the fact that I didn't believe others. Right? What is my fault was that I blew them off and I dismissed their feelings and their opinions and how they felt. Um, it is my fault for thinking they're overreacting and that they were being too sensitive. That is my fault. Um, it's not my fault that I didn't experience that, but it is my fault for not having empathy and trusting people and what they say. And this is what happening with white people is because they've never had to experience what it's like not to be white. They don't understand that there is some privilege going on, that that they are raised in a world where people who are their color, people who look like them, are in these leadership elevated positions and roles. They, they surround them, and they never have to think twice that um, they they never have to be concerned about what they can achieve in life because there's examples everywhere, everywhere. Uh, as far as being big, my circumstances made it so I couldn't see a problem. My circumstances were that um, I was 6'7" and 250 plus pounds. Those were my circumstances, and it made it so I couldn't see a problem. White privilege is your circumstances that you're white and you cannot see the problem. If you listen, there's people that can point it out to you. And if you're open minded, you can say, oh shit, there is. You don't have to get defensive about it because it's not your fault that you're white. Like, there's nothing really bad. It's how you react to it, how you respond to it, how you treat other people. That's your fault. And you may want to correct that. Um, one more thing is that what I didn't cover in the article was white supremacy. Now, I don't know if I know exactly what white supremacy is, but I'll tell you what I think it is. I think that if from the day you were born, you are told by example, right? The example said that you can be anything in the world. That people of your color are the president. People of your color are the lead actors. People of your color are the best guitarist. People of your color are the best businessmen. People of your color are the best inventors. When you look at when you grow up, and from the day you were born, you have these inspiring figures around you 24/7. You are privileged. When that's taken away, then you get, oops, shit. Then you get mad, all right? But the supremacy comes from the fact that you are inspired from the day you were born. You were born into an environment where the majority of the people look like you. You don't feel out of place. You don't almost never have to have that feeling that you feel out of place because of your skin color. That is empowering. That is empowering that from the day you were born till maybe the day you die, you are in the majority. Um, and then you are going to have offspring, and they are also going to be um, white, and they are in everything that you felt through your entire life. You are going to pass that on to your offspring and to your children, and then they're going to do the same. Generations and generations of white people being in power, um, generations upon generations of white privilege. Just being born white sets you above the rest, um, because of the snowball effect of our leaders and our role models have always been white. That creates a supremacy. It's not necessarily people who think being white is better than everything else. It's the people who don't even know. They didn't even have to make that decision. They feel it deep in their bones. They don't think necessarily that being white is better. They just don't know any better. They just have been experienced that their whole life. That is white supremacy. When you don't even have to make a claim. When you don't even have to think white people are superior race. You just it's ingrained in your blood because of the examples in the world that surround you. That is white supremacy to me. And you can't blame anybody. I don't blame anybody for that. Because I just realized, like, if so, when that's taken away, right? When Ariel from the Little Mermaid is cast by a black person, or cast is cast, and it's a black little girl, and that bothers you, and you can't pinpoint why that bothers you, that's because of white supremacy. And it's not a group of that you people that you join that have Nazi swastikas on them and they Heil Hitler. It's just exist because of the examples and the role models and the leaders and the celebrities and everything that you see on TV and the media and stage has been white for hundreds of years, hundreds of years. Anyways, I hope I covered. I hope what I said makes sense. If you want to read an article that started all this, it's on my Medium. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. My name is David Soto Jr. You can find me on Twitter at David E. Soto Jr. And you can find me on Instagram at David E. Soto Jr. Give me a shout out. Say what's up. I am working on the Just Before Bed Journal. That should be coming out soon. The Warrior Pierre, the fourth book in my series about Pierre Bernal de los Campos, is coming. And of course, I have a bunch of stuff on Amazon. Just Google or search David Soto Jr. Folks, I appreciate you tuning in, and I will see you next time.